I think one of the simplest things, although it's simple to me, but for other founders, I've seen it be more stressful, is just obsess over customers and like meet over 100 customers this year. Go meet
Mm.
a customer tomorrow. I find a lot of founders are like building in a bubble, or they're like building
They
to
kind of
be.
decide they've talked to enough customers and they just start kind of building and forget
Yeah.
like
Like
6 months in,
week
like the
you're
whole market
building.
shifted. Yeah.
Totally. Every week you should be talking to customers, whether you're like, okay, I launched and now we're just going to go sell and I have a sales team. No, founder, you go talk to customers this week, or it's pre-launch and you are raising money, and you have a week of fundraising pitches. No, go talk to customers this week. So I don't think there's an excuse on why any founder doesn't talk to at least one customer every week, if not more.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today, we're delighted to have Kris Rudeegraap. I had to pronounce his name a few times. Thanks for coming on, Kris. He's the founder of All Student Rentals and co-founder of Sendoso, transforming customer engagement. Thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
I would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and co-CEO now of Sendoso. For those of you who haven't heard of Sendoso, we are a corporate gifting and direct mail platform helping companies build pipeline, close more revenue by using corporate gifting and direct mail. Started the company about 8 years ago from a problem I found myself in sales for about a decade, and I've been on a wild journey the last 8 years and happy to share it with you.
Amazing. So your first entrepreneurial experience was All Student Rentals. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So while I was in college, I wanted to start a company. I think it spawned from growing up about an hour north of Silicon Valley. And I went to college in 2003.
Marin County? Marin?
Yeah, just a little
Okay,
bit Sonoma County. Yeah, same. And so it was close enough within arm's reach where I'm like, wow, I'm seeing all these cool stories during the .com era of, millionaires overnight. And I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so
be a tech bro.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds fun. So, what I kind of was looking around for was just painful problems that needed to be solved. I think that's a good entrepreneur looks for things that they can solve that are close to them. And one of them was finding housing. I remember moving in my college town up in Chico, California, and Craigslist was. Yeah,
nice.
Went to Chico.
Nice.
So, and
I live out east of Sacramento, and a lot of my friends here went to Chico. So,
right on. Yeah. So I'm actually going up there later this week for a Center for Entrepreneurship event. But
nice.
Anyway, I found a problem. Craigslist was pretty janky. There was a lot of scamminess. I couldn't find roommates. Some of the images were really bad, and so I said, hey, why isn't there a better place to find roommates, to find housing, to have it be connected to the university so that they would promote it on campus as their off-campus housing provider and leverage that for SEO and for lead gen. And so I started and didn't know what I didn't know at the time. It was my first foray into entrepreneurship. Definitely ran into some snags.
That's amazing. So you actually founded this company during college?
Yeah, while I was in college. Yeah, I mean, a couple of the fun areas were one, I was a business major, so I didn't know much about software development. So I posted in the Center for or the College of Engineering on Flyer looking for a co-founder on their little boards, and found a co-founder that way. Raised like 50 grand, which at the time I thought was 50 million, but it was enough to get us going.
That's amazing. You actually raised money in college for basically a web portal.
Yeah.
To, connect housing for students and students to students for roommates. And
yeah,
amazing. How did that business go? And what was kind of the outcome of that?
Yeah. So we ended up partnering with about a dozen universities. I was able to get to about 8 employees, a handful of interns, and then I was able to exit that to another business called Yapstone, which acquired the company mostly due to our portfolio of student property management firms and student REITs, which Yapstone operates a portfolio of property management and payment processing relationships. And so they liked that we had a lot of property managers because it's a perfect segment for who wants to pay their rent online.
Yeah. What a cool founding story. And this is something I look for when I make an investment, right? I've noticed that the best founders have some story like that, where they hack together like a Minecraft server, in high school, and they were making more money than their parents or something there's all kinds of cool stories like that. So what happened next? So you sold the business, and then what did you do? Do you take a gap year? Go to Italy, drink some wine?
The company moved me from Chico to San Francisco, which was always the dream to get into San Francisco. Yeah. And then I worked for them for a handful of years at Yapstone and learned a lot from the founders and the team there. And then moved along to another company that was very early stage, where I was at a company called Pecora, where I was the first employee or kind of part of the founding team against two other engineering co-founders, and then moved my way into TalkDesk, where I was a part of the first couple of folks founding the company. And yeah, so it was really early stage. And I think for me, it was, I didn't have another painful problem I wanted to solve yet. So I didn't want to just start something to start something. Also didn't know what I didn't know. And I thought, hey, why not get like a free education on startup land by being an employee at a company that's scaling and going through hypergrowth? So I was kind of like learning from the inside out.
Yeah, that was always my idea too, is just lots of bad ideas that didn't have traction, you know? So I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to another startup and learn from other people. And I just kind of kept doing that and never got my startups off the ground.
Yeah, there's also a good opportunity to network. And I think that, you know, when starting Sendoso, now I had, you know, 8 years of networking, people that I could go reach out to for, you know, recruiting purposes. We, you know, our first couple hires were actually from relationships at previous companies. And so that, I think your network is also critical in those early years too. So it makes it easier to have worked at other companies.
Yeah, totally. A lot of my connections come from the colleagues
exactly.
You know, of places I worked. So tell us about kind of the founding of Sendoso and what was that origin story?
Yeah. So, you know, as I alluded to, spent about a decade in software sales at various companies, a lot of early stage, but, you know, it was probably about 2015, 2016 when I was really seeing what I thought was a low email open rates, which, you know, fast forward to today and things are totally even worse. But at the time I kind of had you know, a vision and theory that, hey, email was the lifeblood of me in sales, but it was becoming more saturated. And so what else could you do besides send an email to grab the attention of a prospect or to engage and thank a customer? And so I started writing handwritten notes and sending them out. I'd, you know, be on a call and hear a dog bark, and I'd send out, you know, go to Amazon and buy a dog toy and ship it out, or I'd, you know, be in our marketing closet, go steal some swag and box it up on like a Friday afternoon. And it all worked really, really well. It was just pain in the ass. It was annoying to, you know, operate a little mailroom. It sucked going to FedEx, waiting in line. All that stuff made it worse than it really needed to be. And so I dreamed up of a solution where I could just click a button and magically things would get shipped out for me.
That's amazing. And so you find your customers and their contact info, like on like a platform like Zoom Info or Hunter or whatever, and you know who you're mailing and where their office is. And the insight here was, hey, emails become saturated. You know, marketing always ruins every channel eventually. That's the old phrase. I built a bunch of MarTech and ran demand gen teams, so I could definitely relate. And I've done sales and all this stuff. And so you're like, hey, how about just go old fashioned?
Yeah.
How about just go back to direct mail?
Exactly.
Which is not anything that anybody's doing in B2B software, right?
Yeah. When people zig, you got to zag and you got to stand out.
That's amazing. Now my light bulbs are going out for my own fundraise. I'm like, maybe I should like do some direct mail. But so like, you're already starting to kind of toy with this idea as somebody who's leading sales at software companies, and you're like, hey, this, and then did you trial it yourself?
Yeah, so, you know, it was kind of started as like a night and weekends project where I was like, okay, let me build some software. And I think the one takeaway from All Student Rentals was I had good confidence that I could, you know, turn an idea into a usable software product.
Yeah, you'd done it before.
I'd done it before, so I was like, hey, I can do this again. And so, you know, kind of hacked it together nights and weekends. I remember waking up at like 5 a.m. in the dark and, you know, trying to like build out some prototypes. You know, got it to a version where we could send out gift cards. It was actually called Coffee Sender first. And it was working. It was working really well. And my co-founder, Braden, he quit his job first to go jump full-time into Coffee Sender / Sendoso. And we just started getting a ton of customers. And then we decided, hey, let's build Sendoso, which was kind of an obvious next step from sending out coffee gift cards. And so we quit my job and jumped in and started building.
Yeah, so the growth hacking nerd in me is like leaning forward so heavy right now. I don't know if anybody is seeing the video, but I'm like completely like leaning forward into the camera because I love these kinds of stories, right? Because I've run millions of dollars of VC money through demand gen engines online and just burned lots of cash. Yeah. But here's something that's just so like in plain sight that you can do, which is just, you know, just send somebody something.
Yeah, I know. It seems like in retrospect an obvious idea, but I think, you know, and also if I know what I know now with the operational complexities of operating global warehouses and customs and marketplaces and currencies and building order management software and building, SaaS software, building warehouse software. There's a lot of nuances, but the concept of sending somebody something is amazing.
I love that. So tell us, like kind of how you got those first customers, what it was like kind of scaling that business, how it's doing, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, early days, because myself and my co-founder were both, ex-sales folks, getting customers was quite easy. Even before the product was ready to launch, I think we had like a couple dozen people like signed MSAs saying like, we'll buy as soon as it's live. So that part was easy. But and I think we got to like 50 customers overnight. And it was also made it so much easier to raise venture funding, because by the time we were ready to raise our Series A, we already had like 5 million in ARR. Like we were racing. Yeah. For me, what was the big...
That's not typical like software ARR though, right? Because...
No, that was pure software ARR.
Really?
And then on top of that, there was tens of millions of spend that we were able to...
Okay, so you're actually the software layer on top of the fulfillment layer.
Exactly, yeah.
So you actually you have third parties that actually do all the print and mailing and all that stuff, because all that's commoditized.
So we operate some of our own warehouse centers. The manufacturing side is all commoditized, but we're able to do last minute kitting as part of a value add. We're able to stitch together and curate, tens of thousands of products globally that you can ship out in our marketplace. But the aha moment for me was like, hey, we know how to get 50 customers, and I think founder-led sales, as a passionate founder, you can sell anything. But we wanted to quickly move to like what I would call like go-to-market. Like, can we hire a couple strangers that can prospect into some accounts that they, don't know yet and can sell. And so that was kind of the big, is this going to work moment for us? And it did. And we were able to hire a couple salespeople, got them going, said, hey, go figure it out. And we gave them some, a bit of help, but it was really, we wanted to make sure we could have strangers go and sell this.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So like, how has the business evolved? I mean, you've been at it for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Like how many rounds of funding have you guys done? Like, what have you guys learned? How's the business shifted? All that stuff.
Yeah, so we've raised seed A, B, C, so 4 rounds, plus a little friends and family, so 5 rounds. I'd say funding, including, we bootstrapped it a teeny bit in the beginning to get it off the ground. Hundreds of millions, about 250 million spent on the platform, over 100,000 users sending things, tens of millions of things sent. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I mean, I think we were also a part of that like ZERP scale like crazy era with SoftBank putting in the last 100 million in 21.
Oh, wow.
We also
into your company?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, that's a blessing and a curse, to get that kind of money. Yeah.
But then we were fast scaling, tripling year over year. Then we went to our get profitable mode the last year and a half. We went into M&A. We acquired one of our competitors. We invested heavily into AI and data infrastructure. So I don't know if we've been able to check all those checkboxes and learn a ton across the way.
This is crazy because you started here in California and now you've scaled this thing out globally.
Yeah. We have a team over in Europe. We have warehouses in APAC, EMEA, North America.
Which is interesting because if you step back and look at it, like direct mail's been around for decades.
I know.
What do you think the unique insight and your unique take on it was that unlocks so much value?
Yeah, and to your point, decades and billions. Like direct mail is like a 50 billion a year. Corporate gifting's multi-100 billion. Promotional product swag is like 30 billion. And it's been around, like you said, for decades.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for us is we led with software. Most of these swag companies are leading like, hey, do you want the blue or the red? Do you want the one that feels soft or the one that feels softer?
I remember some of these corporate gift things that I get when I was at Microsoft and BD. I was leading like a BD team and somebody sent me this thing and I'd like go, okay.
Even direct mail vendors will lead with like, oh, all you need to do is upload your list to an SFTP site and blah, blah, blah. We led with like, hey, we're going to drive results. We're going to drive pipeline. We're going to drive, revenue. And we're going to do that through an integrated software approach. It integrates into your tech stack so you can have automations. We're also going to create an all-in-one platform. So like a lot of companies will have a print vendor that they do some local print stuff. Then they have an overseas vendor that does print over there. They have a swag vendor for marketing. They have a swag vendor for HR. No one has a gifting vendor. So they end up having like these one-off expense reports from sales. And so we said, take all that, put it under one platform and softwaretize it. And that's just been our golden ticket.
Right. And then some vertical integrations, what it sounds like. So it's not just a pure marketplace of software, but also in some select cases, how do you decide what whether or not to vertically integrate in all the different areas.
Really where we can create efficiencies in our supply chain, where we can improve our margins and pass those along to our customers. So whether that's improving where we source from, where we ship from, how do we push buying power towards certain vendors versus others? So there's a lot of thought that goes into all that. How do we process orders? How do we clean orders? Because some things will come with bad address data or bad, contact information data. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and it's been helpful to have the 150 million plus in venture money that went towards a lot of the heavy lifting of the infrastructure that our customers don't necessarily see, but they feel the benefits when they click a button and it just perfectly works. And also it's kept us far ahead of our competitors, or seen some competitors pop in our space and then falter because they think they can kind of go at it under kind of a cheaper, let me just try to light this up overnight kind of mindset.
Yeah, and that was the insight back in 2016, is no one was doing it with software at the scale that you are now.
Exactly. So and then it just compounded. Being at something for 8 years, you just don't realize we thought about solving this problem 4 years ago and solved it. Or, we built into this margin to our product, 6 years ago, and now it's compounding. So there's a lot of benefits there where an upstart comes in and then they just don't have the ability to compete.
This is a funny bias that humans have, and I wonder what the name of it is. Maybe somebody could write me on what this is, but it's the we could do it faster, better, cheaper bias.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's already been done.
Yeah.
And I've seen this in replatforming with software companies, like enterprise software companies I've worked at.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we're going to take this gigantic code base that we built up over 5 to 7 years, and we're just going to rebuild it all in 6 months. Yeah. It's going to be great. So you're going to take the thing that 100 people have been building for half a decade and just rebuild it in half a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the whole thing. And
yeah.
And this is a great example, right? Yeah. I mean, 8 years gives you a really strong moat.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fallacies in that, and there's a lot of unknowns that shiny object syndrome, I like to call it sometimes, where it's oh, this is a new version of Sendoso copycat. But I'm well, if you only knew what we've done over the last 8 years, you would have thought differently.
Yeah. And I have here in my notes that you guys have a co-CEO.
Yeah.
Sharing responsibilities. Walk us through how that came to be, and what are some pros and cons that you've seen in kind of that leadership style?
Yeah, so I operated like this kind of since day one, where I had a really strong COO and a president and COO since kind of day one, and I mean, I think being a leader at a hyper growth tech company is hard. There's a gazillion things you have to do. And oftentimes there's this, a single point of failure, aka the CEO, who's got everything on their back. And so in the early years, I had this president and COO. We divided and conquered. She was amazing. We split up duties. We split up some of the reporting. We split up some of the focus areas of initiatives we'd take on, big bets, etc. But one of the learnings after about 6 years of that was there was this small nuance internally where it's oh, the CEO title is, the one that holds all the power. And really what I was trying to create was no, she can make any decision she can. I entrust her. We're kind of at this together. And so when we parted ways with her and we needed to bring on someone new, I brought in this other amazing gentleman named Abe, who's was with us for about a year in kind of a chief business officer role, similar to a COO role. And then it came time to promote him, and I really wanted to elevate this kind of co-CEO title so he could get the respect he deserves to make decisions, to feel like he can empower his team. And it's worked amazing, and we collaborate really well, ideate, and it's just been amazing to have someone that you can, divide and conquer with.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how many employees do you guys have now?
Mid-200.
Okay. How has your leadership and how you build culture and organization shifted from when you had 5 to 10 employees to 50 to now 200? That's a big shift.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we've had to do over the last handful of years is be overly transparent and share and educate the company on what's happening, why we shifted from growth at all costs to profitability and what that means. And so having global all hands, having these OKR and North Star metrics, having these Ask Me Anythings, having company kickoffs. And the whole goal there is really educate and build transparency amongst the organization so everyone feels like they're aligned on the same rocket ship. So I think that's been critical. And then, I mean, the biggest thing for me has been just sharing wins. I think creating a culture of winning. And I like to think about it as like winning's like a snowball where you keep sharing these micro wins and it snowballs into these ginormous wins. And so that's been something that has been important to me since day zero. Is just
You don't pour the sand in first, right? It's like the big rocks and then the small rocks,
exactly,
and the pebbles, and then the sand is how I used to
mm-hmm.
describe
That's
it to
how
my
I
team.
think about it.
Yeah, it's like here are the big 3 goals for the company.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like everybody should know. I just had somebody on the podcast actually talking about that kind of goal setting at the org level.
Yeah, and I think it's like it sounds simple, but if you have to reiterate it, you have to teach what these goals even mean. There's even like some skip levels where people are like, "What is this metric?" And I think it's an obvious one, or I'm using like an acronym, and people like don't get it. So I think as important it is to have the OKRs and the shared metrics is equally important to share the reason behind that and what they actually mean and how they actually are affected.
What's interesting is I don't know if Chico generates a bunch of unicorn founders like you guys. So how do you give back to that ecosystem and create that next generation of folks? I'm sure you're probably really active in that community.
Yeah, I have a huge advisory group myself from people that I've met over the journey, even as far back as when I was going to college. And I think, so I always try to give back in terms of, can I advise? Can I help? Can I make introductions? I think that's the biggest thing. Or even just small things like hearing out a pitch from another founder, hearing a fellow, wildcat from Chico and, just giving them the time of day. And I think that means a lot to people. And time is one of the most precious assets. So if I can give that to somebody, means a lot.
It really is. That's one thing I wish I had is like more time. I wish I had like double time.
Indeed.
Do we have that coming? Is that the next quantum like advancement? Maybe. Like here, just take this pill and it'll double your time. You can live like 2 days for every one day that goes by. What advice do you have for founders, building these hyper growth teams like this in this hyper growth environment? You went through this, sounds like this big hockey stick of growth. Having done that, like, looking back and you have a founder kind of in that same situation, what are you telling them to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the simplest things, although it's simple to me, but for other founders, I've seen it be more stressful, is just obsess over customers and like meet over 100 customers this year. Go meet a customer tomorrow. I find a lot of founders are like building in a bubble, or they're like building.
They kind of decide they've talked to enough customers and they just start kind of building and forget. Like 6 months in, like the whole market shifted. Yeah,
totally. Every week you should be talking to customers, whether you're like, okay, I launched and now we're just going to go sell and I have a sales team. No, founder, you go talk to customers this week, or it's pre-launch and you are raising money, and you have a week of fundraising pitches. No, go talk to customers this week. So I don't think there's an excuse on why any founder doesn't talk to at least one customer every week, if not more.
Yeah, I have a funny story about this. I won't name the startup I went to, but I went from one startup to another as a product manager. And at startup A, the first startup, like I was out of the building all the time, just talking to our target customers and going to ride-alongs with them and just really like kind of living their existence and just understanding and empathizing with their lives. And then I get to startup B and they're like, "Oh, we don't talk to customers." I'm like, "Well, but you're building the product. Like, you need to actually go talk to people who are buying the product and people who are using the product." Oh no, like the sales team and the product marketing team does that.
Yeah,
like that wrong answer.
Yeah,
like you need to like PMs are like kind of like mini CEOs, and
I 1000% agree. Yeah,
you have to get out there and like be the CEO, right?
Exactly. I mean, we have an amazing head of product now who grew up through the organization. He was in sales engineering, talking to customers every day, was on like a gazillion demos, actually started in support. And so he is not scared at all. He'll go talk to customers every single day. And we've had
some of the best product managers come out of support, actually.
Yeah. And we've had a couple previous product leaders who were like, on paper, on resume, were like the most elite hires ever, but were like nowhere to be found when comes to talking to customers.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah.
So you've invested and advised lots of different companies. How do you decide which companies to invest in or advise?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to the problem and the founders. So a combination of those where it's either a problem that like I felt that problem, I know the pain, I know it needs to be solved, or founders that I have seen have success in the past and are building on something that I can get behind. But then, it's the conviction, the obsession over the problem. I also try to look for I think good storytellers for founders. You need to be good at selling, or you need to be good at, selling your vision to employees. So how do you tell a story? I think is critical. And then kind of like the last thing,
I call this the ring the NASDAQ bell effect.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm assessing a founder, I'm like, do I see them like ringing it, like the NASDAQ bell or being on the cover of Forbes?
I like
because
that.
to build a $1 billion company, you have to have that like star quality too.
Totally. You are always like in the public eye. You're always trying to go talk to employees, customers, you know, everything.
And you're going to eventually convince people who are way smarter and more successful, better educated than you to join you on your crazy like startup.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally, you got to be like not just a good builder, of course, but like good at sales.
100%. You know? Yeah. And the last thing I try to look out for too is some kind of, and this is more recent, you know, some kind of unfair or unique go-to-market distribution. And I think more recently, you know, the barriers to build products and find good engineers or find product people and actually execute on building software has been easier than maybe it has been 2 decades ago, or infrastructure and all these like software as a service type tools to make building products easier. But on the other side, it's made it even more noisy to actually go to market. And so I tend to like focus a bit more on that, like great problem you're solving, but how are you going to go get 10 customers or 10,000 customers? And if there's a really solid answer for that, or multiple answers or a game plan.
There's some sort of unique wedge. I call it distribution wedge like in my framework.
Yep.
It's like, okay, I have 100,000 like real estate investment followers on, you know, my TikTok or my YouTube. Like, cool. And you're making prop tech kind of software.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like
exactly.
You already have the audience. This is going to work out. Or I had a really unique one recently where the founders had hacked. So what they were doing, I won't say too many details because it's freaking genius, is they were like literally they're using AI to automate some job. I won't name what it is, and so what they were doing is they were looking at the job postings for that job and saying, hey, we could do that with AI now. Take a look at our platform.
Nice.
So the employer was listing the job to do and saying, oh yeah, we have AI that'll do that now. Once you get like do a 30-day, you know, pilot. And they're just printing money, like printing customers right now.
I love that.
So you like look for that little kind of, what's your angle here to acquire customers? Because you need an angle.
Yeah, exactly.
What was your early angle? Like, what did you like? Obviously, you've done sales and what do you see like when you look back at that kind of friends and family and seed kind of area? What was your wedge way back then?
I was obsessed over outbound at the very beginning, and so that was really critical. I think we hired SDRs and really built out this like automated outbound before that was even like a thing.
I mean, you could also just use your own platform.
Exactly. That also helped a lot too.
That's the awesome thing about MarTech.
Yeah. That helped a lot. We also had like some built-in virality where when the recipient received a gift, then there was an inherent likelihood that they'd be intrigued on like, why aren't they sending gifts themselves as a go-to-market strategy? So there's the kind of like the SurveyMonkey Dropbox phenomena where like, you know, if you complete a survey or you sign a document, you kind of know what that solution is at the end and if you should sign up. So that was some
virality, some sort of viral loop.
Exactly.
I've been thinking about this as somebody who runs a network of investors, Team Ignite. Yeah. How do I create virality in the system? You know?
I think that's a really key thing to bring.
Everybody I bring on into Team Ignite brings, you know, more than one extra person.
Yeah.
Tell me how to do this. Free consulting time.
Yeah. I mean,
send a gift. You Sendoso, send a gift or
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. It's very meta. It's like, well, the answer is sending a gift.
Yeah, send a gift to them. I was thinking about that, like sending them a coffee mug or something. So like Team Ignite is just always sitting in their kitchen.
Or sending them two so that they give one of them to their friends for virality.
There you go. Yeah. That's funny. So what are you excited about for Sendoso in the coming year? Next 12 months.
So much. I'm excited about our big bet on AI and coming true. I think we years and years and years ago were building like the data infrastructure to track like what's the right gift to send to the right person at the right time with the right message and the right delivery channel. That has always been a dream of ours for, you know, the last like 5-6 years when we kind of stumbled upon that. And now that we're there, we've already released some features around that, a smart send feature, smart messaging feature that has helped our customers. So I think we're just getting started there on how do we drive more automations with AI. So I think that's really interesting. I think there's a lot of years of just like I don't know, it's kind of like our infrastructure layer of the fulfillment, the marketplace, the tech stack integrations, all the enterprise controls. It's necessary, but it's not as sexy as the cool stuff that we're able to demo now. After building all that, now we have all this really cool data and AI we can build. So I think that's the coolest stuff that I'm excited for, and where that helps our customers and transform us into what was maybe originally looked at like a logistics company to being more of like a data company.
That makes sense. What about like 10 years out, like the long-term vision? Like you know, 10 years from now, you'd be at this for 18 years. So
Yeah,
that's a long time to imagine, but 5 to 10 years, like way out, like,
yeah, I mean, I
looking
think
back, you know, you're doing your, I don't know, Wall Street Journal interview.
exactly.
Like,
I think
what did you
it'll
accomplish?
be hopefully as ubiquitous as, you know, these other channels like email is. You know, I think we're still barely scratching the surface of different industries, different use cases. You know, hundreds of billions are being spent siloed and disparate and through spreadsheets. And so if we could be the, you know, what Salesforce did to CRM, if we could be that for just the general gifting, rewards, incentives, direct mail space, like there's infinite, you know, years that we could do this for the next 100 years, and, you know, hopefully having tens of billions of dollars flow through our platform.
Right. Getting all 3D printed and built by robots in the future.
Yeah. We're already doing some of that. We have some cool robots that do handwriting. So that's pretty fun.
Oh, that's interesting. If you could go all the way back and send them, like, I don't know, telegram, email message, you know, back to yourself when you're first starting Sendoso, what advice would you give yourself back in time?
Geez, great question. You know, maybe, I think we obsessed over ARR and sales because that's what I like was, you know, grew up doing the decade before. I think I would probably say obsess over like NRR or NDR or, you know, customer retention and expansion very early. You know, I think during the hyperscale, it was like new logos. Who cares about our existing logos, but like
the top of the funnel,
time, just throwing people in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think we could have probably productized interesting features that drove expansion. We could have probably layered on some really interesting use cases earlier than when we did, because we would have focused on them aside from just throwing more customers in. So I think a lot of companies come in and the advice is go get 10 customers, go get, you know, 50 customers, but like go get 10 customers and then go expand one of them 3x and then go get 10 more customers. I think is an interesting like thought exercise too.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And, you know, good investors will look at that, right? It's like not just...
Good investors love that. I mean, we were lucky and we had some of that by just luck, I guess you could say. Like it was just like people were just using it more and expanding. It wasn't by like, we weren't focused on that. But I think if we would have focused on it more, it would have been even easier. And, you know, it would have unlocked a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's switch to rapid fire.
All right, let's do it.
All right. What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Usually check my email, but I have an 8-month-old son now. And so usually it's running into his room and stopping him from crying because my wife's like nagging at me that the sound machine's going off.
Yeah. Is he sleeping through the night now?
He does sleep through the night, but he likes to wake up sometimes between like, I don't know, 5:30 and 7. So he's sometimes like the 5:45 a.m. was a little bit earlier than I like to wake up. And so I got to run and help him. But usually I like to quickly scan through emails and clean my inbox and see if there's anything important.
I have three kids, but they're much older, so I'm way on the other side of that.
Lucky.
And it happens fast, so just enjoy every minute of it. What's the best business advice you ever received?
This goes back to my all student rentals actually days in college, where I had an advisor that told me it's not what you know, but who you know. And that stuck with me the whole time of like, how do I continue to meet people no matter what? And any meeting, any conversation is an opportunity.
Yeah. That's why I do the podcast.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You know, for anyone listening, Kris and I have never spoken.
Yeah.
He just got introduced as a great guest for the podcast. I'm like, Kris looks like an interesting guy. Let's have him on.
Who knows
we
what
get to
come from.
Hang out for an hour, and I learned a lot. And he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, maybe we'll collab in the future on something cool.
Exactly.
And
that's exactly right. It is who you know, and it's really who you know because everything comes from other people.
Yeah.
You know, like everything you have, actually, if you stop and think about it, came from someone else.
I know.
There's very like little you like uniquely create in the world. It's like all like kind of collected from other people, given and taken.
Yeah.
And so the more people you have in your network, you know, the more valuable you are to them and they are to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. I love that advice as well. What's the best book you've read recently?
I liked Frank Slootman's book. I think it was Amp It Up. Amp It Up. I thought that was a good book. I think he brings a good perspective on CEO leadership and has had a
Amp It
good
Up,
track
huh?
record.
It's a book on leadership.
It's a book on, yeah, it's a book also kind of highlighting his journey from being the CEO of Snowflake and the other companies that
Oh,
he's
right.
had a ton of
Yeah.
success with. So I found it pretty interesting. This is like third time, like, deca-billion-dollar companies, like he's doing something right.
Yeah, he's doing
It also
something
gave
right.
me a fresh look too on how I think about the CEO board member relationship or board relationship. And so I like I like that book.
I'm going to go read that. That's great.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any entrepreneur, dead or alive, who would it be?
I'm still a big fanboy of like Mark Benioff, growing up in sales, being like a Salesforce power user forever. I think he's done an incredible job of building a category and gazillion investments from San Francisco, I was in San Francisco, so it'd be an easy dinner to have. So
Aloha.
if he's listening, hit me up.
Mark Benioff. I ran into him at a Warriors game. I was like, not courtside, but like, 1 or 2 rows back, and he just walked right by. I was like, hey, Mark, what's up?
Yeah. He's a big guy too.
He's bigger than you expect.
I've seen him a couple times at Dreamforce in person. I'm like, wow, dude, you're like way taller than I can see in like your profile pics.
Yeah. He just gave a talk at the Ellen Summit down in LA.
Very cool.
It was really funny. He was just like tongue in cheek the whole time. Just a really funny guy. What's your favorite productivity tool or app?
I'm obsessed with Feedly, and it consolidates like 300 blogs that I read into a very scrollable, quick, consumable kind of.
I need to get back on Feedly. I need to get back on Feedly.
I love it.
What I used to like back in the day was Google Reader.
Yeah, exactly. This was like
I was an avid user of that.
And
then when they killed that, I was so upset.
To Feedly back in the day because I had all these RSS feeds. I exported it, imported it.
I need to reignite that, to use pun intended. Because I'm kind of stuck in the Google discovery feed and on x.com and my own social, and it's hard to find like a good article. And I like that kind of short, medium form kind of content.
Yeah, and I can just read a quick the headlines, or sometimes I'll search for within Feedly at times, and also I'll purposely go out there and be like, ooh, I'm interested in this new topic like AI agents. I'm gonna go try to subscribe to some blogs that talk about that. And
what are a few blogs that are like must reads? Like you just kind of keep going back to them.
I don't know, because through Feedly, I don't really care about the blog itself or the blog, the website or whatever. I just like subscribe to so many of them. It's like what content's more interesting to me at the time.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't have.
I don't even know where the articles are coming from.
I was that way with Ben Thompson's trajectory for like 5 solid years when I was in like corporate career big tech mode.
Yeah,
he writes a lot about big tech and strategy, and I was getting my MBA, and I'm like, this is so cool, and like I just kind of burnt out on it after 5 sorry, Ben, if you're listening, but I loved it. His was my favorite for a long time.
Yeah.
What's one habit that's helped you succeed as a CEO?
I mean, meeting customers, always selling. I think that's critical.
Always be closing.
Always be closing. For me, it's always be selling, because like now that I'm not, I'm not closing deals, but I'm always selling.
Right. I love that. And then last question, in one word, how would you describe your entrepreneurial journey?
Rewarding.
Ooh, I like that. I love that. So where can listeners find out more about you and Sendoso?
Me personally, I'd be on LinkedIn, Kris Rudeegraap. Email me. I'm always happy to chat with folks. It's Kris, Kris, @sendoso.com. And if you want to hear more about Sendoso, sendoso.com, sendoso.com.
Yeah, and let's try to put together like a little offer for Team Ignite portfolio companies
100%.
or something.
Yeah, I got some.
So yeah, look for that on our website or our partner list or whatever if you're a Team Ignite founder and listening to this.
Definitely.
All right, Kris. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
This was fun. Thanks for having me, Ryan.